Okay, everyone, a wonderful Tuesday, wonderful evening if you're in the Asia time zone, wonderful lunchtime if you're in Europe, and if you're in the US, like myself right now, then a wonderful early morning, 6:30 a.m. here on the East Coast. We have some topics we want to discuss. Obviously, I would love to give a couple of ideas on our announcement that we had with Cake DeFi Ventures, our $100 million fund that got announced over the past week. Maybe Nick, who is leading that fund, is also joining. We're not 100% sure because he was also traveling. So I'm not sure if he's in. If he is, he's going to share a bit about his background and share a bit about what's happening in that fund. So hopefully he can join us. Otherwise, I'll kind of jump in. Nick, if you're in here as a listener, then please just ask to speak. Then Fabio can add you into the speaking list here. Yeah, and then obviously we want to discuss what else is going on in the entire kind of company. I'm going to give you a quick update on yeah, what happened here at South by Southwest. If you're interested in that, maybe also here at the event or you were at the event in Austin, Texas. Obviously, we have stuff happening in the crypto space. We had the EU completely reject that Bitcoin proof of work ban, which was quite exciting to see because I think a couple of people were a bit more pessimistic on that vote. So that was quite positive. Then obviously we have the Fed announcement tomorrow, Wednesday. We're going to speculate a bit on that. And I don't know, maybe we'll have a bit of a discussion of Saylor versus Elon Musk, virtual versus physical assets, utility versus scarcity. Let's see where this all takes us. And then obviously if you have questions on that, and for us to answer, then simply either tweet at me at Julian Husp or tweet at the company at Cake DeFi. And yeah, we can dive into your questions as well. If you're joining us for the very first time and you know what's going on, it's myself, Julian, as the CEO and co-founder of the company, and Fabio, who is leading, who's the head of community, where we ramble, discuss, speculate. Obviously, none of that stuff here is financial advice. We probably know as little or as much as you do, and these are just our weekly thoughts. We do these on every Tuesday, normally same time, 11:30 a.m. Europe time or evening Singapore time. And if you're joining us live, that's always great. If you're just listening to a recording on a podcast, then please consider subscribing and leaving a like. Cool. With that out of the way, Fabio, did I leave out any topics, anything from an overview that you think we need to add or address into our daily discussion list? I also want to mention we're always doing this super spontaneously. Like literally 5 minutes prior, I dropped Fabio a note and I'm like, okay, these are the 5 things we need to discuss. Am I missing anything? And then he's like, no, it sounds good. Oh yeah, let's add this. So I don't know. Did I leave anything out? You're muted. Maybe you have the same issue as I sometimes have, where I'm trying to unmute and I can't. Now you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Yeah, I think you have the same issue as I sometimes have. Okay, then I'll just assume Fabio says, no, Julian, you're completely right. You covered everything. Everything is in line. Great, thanks, Fabio. I appreciate that. I'm the best boss ever, right? Yes, Julian, you are. Cool. Man, isn't it great to have such team members? Awesome. Cool. Jokes aside, let's go in. We're going to do Take DeFi Ventures. We're going to start with that. I'm quickly going to give an intro. I see Nick is in. So we're going to have him share a bit about his background and a bit of the vision for the fund. And yeah, so quick background on the fund itself. I did a super short YouTube video on Cake's channel as well. It was like an 8-minute video. You can watch that with a quick explainer. So I'm going to do the same thing here as an audio version. If a company does really well and Cake DeFi does really well over the past 3 years, and you accumulate profits, there are 3 things that you can do with these profits. Option 1, you pay them out to shareholders, which would mean I pay myself, we pay u-zyn, we're basically 50-50 in the company. And that's it. And then you expect that u-zyn and myself have better ideas for those funds. To be honest, we believe in the business long term. We don't need to take profits. We really prefer for the company to reinvest, to grow. And I think that's that's going to deliver value to everyone. So I don't see the company in the stage where it needs to pay dividends. So no need to take profits. Second option is we reinvest in our existing business. And we're doing this. I mean, reinvesting aggressively into marketing, into the product. We're growing the team. We're trying to really go as razor sharp on the margins for you as customers to make it super attractive for you to use the various products. So we're doing that. And at the same time, we can obviously grow the business by doing partnerships and by co-investing with those partnerships. So this Take DeFi Ventures Fund is part of our treasury. It's $100 million that we're taking. That this is company money, so it's there's no outside investment, and we're using this mainly to build successful partnerships and mainly to have these really great collaborations with other projects. So these projects that we're investing in, they should be in the DeFi space, Web3 space, NFT space, metaverse space, GameFi space, where, yes, of course, we want to like make a financial return. We don't just want to burn money, but actually the return on the investment, while it is important, it is not the most important thing. The most important thing for us is to have a symbiosis, to have synergies, to have them helping us and us being able to help them. So that's kind of how we see that fund. And obviously, since u-zyn and myself are not experts in that field, we had two people come in. Nick, who's going to share a bit about, he's also a partner, so he's going to share about how he kind of sees the entire development of the fund. We also have Cheslin, who is on the associate side. She's always the first point of contact. She's the person who really helps a lot on the sifting and sorting and just prepares a lot of the connections and interactions. And maybe also to help you a bit with the decision making, I just want to throw that in. Basically, it's mainly going to be Nick and Chess who are going to be running that. u-zyn and myself, we are more on the veto kind of side. So it's not going to help you to write to me and say, hey, look, I have this deal. Julian, I've been following you forever. Would be great if you could push this deal through and the fund invests in my project. This is like, I cannot push a deal through. The only thing I can do is I cannot veto it. But at the end, there's still Nick and then there's still u-zyn who have the same veto. So it has to be a unanimous decision. And so far, this veto has been working really well. We've actually been very selective. I think you have to be very careful in this space where sometimes valuations of a company can be $50 million without a product, without a team, just a white paper and idea. Sometimes reminds you a bit of 2017 or 2018. So yeah, we have also made an announcement that we made one investment. I'll let Nick share a bit about that, and then I'll also let Nick share a bit about the vision and some ideas. I'll take a bit of the interviewer role here and kind of let Nick do most of the talking. Yeah, that I have given now this intro. So Nick, please take the stage.
Thank you.
And take it away.
Thank you, Julian, for that great intro. I hope everybody can hear me fine.
Yep, loud and clear.
I am kind of speaking to you from high up in the Alps in Kitzbühel, right? I was going to get on
my hometown, not really, but like my home area. Yeah.
I was going to get on the ski lift, and then Fabio called and said, "Hey, Nick, you need to come on here," and here I am. Okay, it's great to see everyone on the Twitter space. Maybe Julian has given a great intro. I'll just add a bit more about my personal background. I've been in the technology space for 20 over years, starting with software. But I spent a good part of that time in financial companies like Visa. So I had different roles. I had risk management. I also looked at a couple of the investment deals that Visa was going to make, and and I mentioned Visa in particular because, true story, I had a colleague walk into the office one day. I think this was 2013, if I didn't remember wrongly, And he said, I bought this thing called Bitcoin for like $100, all of which you should buy with me. We're like, what is this? Interesting, not interesting. And then a few weeks later, I think, or a few months later, he came into the leaders meeting and he said, oh, it's that $100 Bitcoin I told you about is now $1,000, right? It's like, we were like, whoa, what did we miss out? Everybody got interested. And then a few weeks later, I think, or a few months later, this has been quite far back. I'm not so good on some of the timelines, but he came back and said, "Oh, I lost all of it because of Mount Gox." And all of us like, you see, we told you so. Speculative investments and all of that, right? So that was just kind of like my first intro to crypto. I went on to I kind of really I've been doing my own angel investing for 15 years or so. To be honest, and so this whole venture investing, angel investing in Singapore, it's not been that long, right? It's I think at most the history in Singapore has been about 15, 20 years, and I was almost right at the beginning of that, and I did some of my first own deals. To be honest, my first few deals, I'm not sure I knew what I was doing. Most of my deals didn't kind of like do that well. There were one or two that did okay. Those of you who've been far back enough, you would know a website called Singapore Entrepreneurs, SG Entrepreneurs. So I was the first investor in that, and we sold that to Tech in Asia. Many of you should know Tech in Asia, right? And then one other AI UX company that went public on one of the European exchanges. And then when I left Visa, I moved into private equity. So if any of you know private equity, basically we set aside about $150 million US. Part of the money came from a sovereign wealth fund, and our aim was to buy out companies, and at the time our thesis was around media technology, and we particularly liked education at the time, and did some of that for 2 years. And along the way, friends of mine had started out venture funds, so like funds like Jungle Ventures and all of that. And I started to get involved with some of one of these venture funds, right? In particular, Jungle, in looking at what they were doing, right, on and off. And then I spent some time with them last year, helping them in one or two of their portfolio companies. And then had a chat with u-zyn and then Julian about the exciting vision behind Cake DeFi Ventures, or this venture fund. Initially, we didn't even know what we were going to call it, right? But here I am, right? And very excited. I think having kind of like shared with you a bit of my journey across from angel investing, institutional investing, MNC, private equity, bit of VC, to kind of look at what we can do, what the possibilities, right? I think it's not just about the it's not just about the fact that there's 100 million. I think the company has built such a strong foundation, right, around the user base. We can be really, really value add to the companies that we invest in, as well as just the excitement, right? Or we're just at the beginning of the whole growth of Web3, and there's so much potential, and we want to focus on our core business. At the same time, we want to participate in some of that growth. We want to help use some of the resources that we have to build an ecosystem. So I'm going to pause here first. That's my intro. I don't know if anyone has any question, or Julian, would you like me to talk about anything else in particular?
I'm monitoring Twitter. Fabio's monitoring as well. So if there's any questions specifically, I'm gonna definitely jump in right away. No, I think that looks good so far. Is there anything else you want to share a bit on the background? Because then maybe I would love to transition over. How did you get into Cake? Where was the connection? And then maybe what do you see for yourself as the vision with the fund? And then maybe we just discuss the first deal. That would be kind of the lead over.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to talk about what we're looking at from the fund, and also just maybe a bit of background on the first deal.
I like that.
Yeah, take it.
Yep,
yeah,
that's perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So high level parameters in terms of what we're looking for. Maybe some of you are curious. We've been very encouraged since we announced the fund last week. I think our inbox have totally blown up. I think more than 150 media mentions, news clippings, and just like I think I want to say we've been receiving at least 3 emails requesting for funding every hour, like for the first 48 hours, right? Something like that. So we're if you wrote into us and we haven't got back to you, hope you understand that we're just kind of like sifting through on top of the deals that we're already looking at. But here's some high level parameters to help you in case you're really interested to kind of pitch to us. First of all, we need to invest in equity. So if you're coming to us with a token proposal, that is going to be very, very difficult and challenging for us, right? We are looking for something that's long term in the ecosystem, and Julian can add and give a bit more color to that as well. But we're looking at equity. So please don't come to us with a token, a pure token pitch. I think that's one thing. Now we are quite agnostic in terms of the stage of the company. As long as it's private, I don't think we are in a position to do public companies, right? As long as you're private, whether you are pre-seed, seed, Series A, Series B, even Series C, Series D, we would consider to look at you. However, we do have an upper limit. Our maximum check size is going to be $2.5 million US. So if you're going to raise $100 million round, and we like you a lot, the most you can participate is $2.5 million, right? That's just for context. And we obviously have a huge preference for Web3, right? Everything from NFTs, gaming, metaverse, and all of that. And also because of the space that we're in, DeFi, fintech, obviously. But don't we're not going to stop there, right? So don't limit your thinking around that. I think for us, if you can show us, or if we can see how your startup can be strategic to us, or vice versa, like how we can be really strategic and helpful to you as in your company, right? With our knowledge, our expertise, our experience, our resources, our user base. We think that you have a different kind of product, but you'll be really helpful, right? For example, not to kind of like break any commercial secret, we're looking at a couple of companies that are in the estate planning inheritance business, for example. Just for example, right? Just like just imagine if what do you do if, let's say, someone you love is holding on to crypto and passed away? What do you do? How do you manage inheritance, estate planning? How do you hand over some of these things? So that's an example of that's not really, it's quite traditional space, right? It's not Web3. It may not even be arguably fintech, but we think that has a lot of synergy to what we are doing. It can value add a lot to our users. So that's one example of area that's not Web3, that's not necessarily fintech, but we're really interested in that. We see ourselves as we would like to see ourselves as strategic, as Julian mentioned earlier, right? Financial return is important, but it's not like the most important thing for us. And we really want to kind of like take a long-term view. We don't want to get out in 6 months or 1 year or 2 years, right? We want this we want to kind of like journey as fellow entrepreneurs, fellow founders like Julian and u-zyn, to journey together with fellow entrepreneurs, right? Someone's ever said like entrepreneurship is one of the most lonely journeys, right? And to have a community, an ecosystem of founders to journey together, we think it's going to be really helpful both for you and hopefully for us as well. What am I missing? What did I miss out, Julian?
Fabio raised his hand, so
Yep.
I think he's gonna have a question.
I guess I fixed my audio problems. Hi, everybody, and a special thanks.
Thanks
to
for
Nick.
all the nice compliments you made about me, Fabio. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Of course. And a compliment to you, Nick, as well, because you're taking some time of your skiing trip in Austria to come onto this Twitter space. And I think it's your first Twitter space. So thank you for that.
That's right. Thank you.
The most asked question, or the most thing that comes up in the community on Telegram and on Reddit is, of course, how does this fund of 100 million benefit me as a Cake customer? And is there any way for me as a customer to get some skin in the game to get in this fund. Can either one of you maybe touch on this?
Nick,
That's a good one.
I'll let you
I'll
share.
take a first step, and then maybe Julian can add to that. We talked a bit about opening up the fund to have friends and families or partners to co-invest with us in the fund, right? And maybe that's the first thing. And just to get that out of the way, we're not doing that, at least not at the moment. If you're, actually some folks have written in and say, I'm a Cake loyal, passionate customer. I want to co-invest. I want to invest in this fund. How do I do that? I have to apologize. We're not open for that right now. I think the way to think about it is benefiting you as a Cake fan, a Cake user, is really about what I shared just now. Our intent is to really grow the ecosystem, and we hope that we can. On one hand, we hope to benefit the ecosystem. It's a long-term play, but we also hope that part of what, as the ecosystem grows, and there are interesting startups that come along and grow along with us, that our Cake, our users will also be able to benefit from that. I just actually gave an example about estate planning, inheritance, legacy planning, wills, and all of that. That's an example, right? I think we didn't want to prejudge. Like Julian said, we know as much about the space probably as you do, right? In terms of what we think the possibilities are, I think it's going to be pretty kind of like limitless in terms of what the possibilities are, and we want to see what's out there in the market, what's out there. And I think one thing to note is that we did not limit ourselves to any particular geography. In fact, we're out here in Singapore. I'm here now in Austria, but our first deal that we made was actually out in the US, right? And maybe now's a good time to talk about that, right? So Edge of NFT is one of the top podcasts for NFTs. I think they depends on what you look at, right? Whether you look at Spotify, I think they were ranked easily top 10, top 50. And then on sometimes when you search on Google for NFT podcasts, they're like they come out as one of the top few results and all that. They're really respected and in that aspect. And then they started organizing their own event called the NFT LA, which is like completely sold out, right? For those of you who are going to the event, right? I'm hoping to be there. If you see me, come by and say hi, right? And I think just we think that someone like them, it's not an immediate financial return, but they are so plugged in to the entire NFT ecosystem. I want to say they see almost a lot, not everything, but a lot, right? Because they interview the most interesting people, they go to the most interesting events. Now they host this event, they have the most interesting folks getting there, and we want to journey with them, have that relationship, partnership to grow this whole ecosystem together, and then think about how we can bring some of that growth, some of that innovation, if you can use the word a bit loosely, right, back into Cake, and how that would eventually benefit the users. Julian, maybe you can speak to that a little bit more.
No, Nick, I think it's.
Okay.
I think you summarized it perfectly. There's nothing else. There's really nothing I would love to take away there.
Great,
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great insights, Nick. I have one more question, and so this came up on Reddit and on Telegram quite a lot. And the question is, maybe you can explain that a little bit to the community and to the listeners, is did we partner with anybody to set up this fund, and where are these $100 million coming from?
So I can talk on I can talk on where the money is coming from, and then Nick can talk about the partner, because obviously Nick doesn't have the same insights into the main business as I have as the CEO. So the $100 million comes from the profit that we have made as a company over the past 3 years. So this is company funds. This is what we made as a profit. I mean, it's very easy to kind of understand. I mean, look at how much money the customers made over the past 3 years, and we're in the same boat. So if the customers made a lot of money, then the company is doing well as well. So I think that's where it is. That's relatively, I think, straightforward. Again, I mentioned this, we're undergoing a PCOP audit. This is going to be happening for 2019, 2020, and 2021. Once those once those results are audited and done and out, I'm super happy to release all the financial statements and all the financial details. I promise this all the time. But before we don't have the sign off on that, yeah, I just can't do that yet. But then it should be like you can even digest in detail on where everything is coming from. So yeah, we want to be super transparent as a platform. I think that's what crypto is all about. It's about this transparency, and it's about the simplicity and easiness to getting access to cash flow, and then obviously having those attractive returns. So yeah, that's kind of the background. And then Nick, partners.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, before I answer the question about partners, I actually want to add on to Julian's point, and I think to talk about my excitement about being part of this, right? First of all, super impressed with both what Julian and u-zyn have done with the company and the entire team, right? Everybody, when I step into the office, I look at everyone, it's like, oh, you used to be from the formerly from the government, you used to be from Goldman Sachs and all that. It's like I'm kind of like walking among amazing people, right? Many giants, right? I feel like I always told my former bosses in Visa that I like to be the stupidest guy. I don't like to be I don't want to be the most clever person in the room. I want other people who I work with to be more clever than me. And I feel that way, right? Sometimes walking into the kick office and just super impressed. I think with what the team has built and the people in the team and where everything is going and just an impressive growth, right? Just amazing. And to Julian's point about the where the money comes from, from the profits the company had made. I want to say that's an important distinction, and one of the reasons why I felt that DeFi Ventures or CDV, right, is going to be different from other venture funds. For those of you who've been involved or have some insights into how other funds work, normally that's what we call a capital call. It means that if the fund announces today that, oh, we have $100 million, it doesn't mean that the fund has $100 million in the bank, usually for others, right? It means that they have commitments from investors to put 100 million, and they would have to call down the capital according to the schedule. Now, what happens, I've seen for myself quite a few times that in tough times, especially, right, sometimes when the investor have gone and made a commitment to the startup, say, hey, startup, I'm going to give you $5 million to invest in you. And then hang on, let me go back to my investors to draw down the money. And you know what? Sometimes the money is not there, right? It's a terrible situation to be in. And the person who gets screwed the most actually is the startup founder, because you get all excited. XYZ major fund, sovereign fund, whatever has decided to invest in me, and they couldn't fulfill because their investors could not fulfill their capital call. Now, one of the things I'm excited about is that we don't have this situation here, right? The money is in the bank. It's in the bank, right? If I can say confidently, look the founder in the eye and say, we're going to do this, we're going to invest in you, I know for a fact the money is there and that we can do it. I think that for me is important, right? It's not so much important that, this ex-sovereign wealth fund and all of that. One of the previous funds I worked with had a sovereign wealth fund as an investor, right? So I kind of have some sense of how this works. But I want to call out this one of the reasons why, apart from everything else I've talked about, was why CDV is super exciting and interesting for me personally. Now, to the question about partnerships, we talked a lot about this internally, and we've been having conversations. We're not close to any partnerships. The truth is that we also may not be need to prioritize partnerships. So there have been conversations, and interesting conversations around partnerships. We're not in a hurry to sign on any partners, right? Because just like myself, Jesslyn, right? She's not here on the call, I think, but she has lots of experience as well, right? Just the experience of the team, right, is sufficient to really get this going, and we believe that CDV will be not only just successful, but it will really be what we call accretive, right, to the Cake DeFi's core business. But along the way, if we find interesting partners that we think that would be helpful, have the same vision, same values, most importantly, right, we are totally open to seeing how partnerships like that would form up. That's my take, Julian.
Cool. Thanks, Nick. That's fantastic. I think that was a really, really good insight, good intro. Fabio, anything else we need to ask Nick? Otherwise, I think we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Thank you so much, Nick, for all the insights and what you just shared, and the great work Jesslyn and you are doing. And I think we probably need to schedule another Twitter Spaces sometime in the future, where you can provide us with a few updates what's happening on the VC front.
Yep. And then we also we're gonna get Chess on as well. I think it's also really nice. I thought today for an intro, it was good to have Nick, and then in the future for various deals also. Chess normally is gonna be the first point of contact. So yeah, when we close a deal or work with someone, then I think it might be an also interesting kind of approach to understand a bit of the thinking and the kind of process and everything. So yeah.
Maybe just for the listeners, this was super spontaneous. So yesterday evening, I reached out to Nick and I asked him if he's up to joining the Twitter Spaces. And then just 5 minutes before the start of the Spaces, we had a super short 60-second call where it was like, okay, you need to join the Spaces. You click this symbol and you click there for requesting to talk. So this is not scripted at all. It's all a little bit spontaneous, and I think yeah, thank you very much, Nick, for doing that.
Yeah, you literally yanked me out of my ski lift, right? I'm looking at all these skiers coming down from the slopes. I'm I wish all of you can see what I'm seeing now. But thank you for bringing me on. Thank you. It's
Cool.
great to be here with everyone.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I think that's the main update right now we have on the platform. We will share more and more every Tuesday, especially when they're coming out. One quick thing, so maybe a little bit experience here. I was at South by Southwest just 2 days, so I was just here on Friday and Saturday, and then yesterday I was supposed to fly to the East Coast for some really important matters regards our company. But my flight got canceled, so I had to leave on Monday morning. All went well, all in time, so it was all good, quite successful, so quite happy. But what I wanted to share was maybe quick on South by Southwest. My talk was on Saturday. It was on decentralized tokenization. It was quite interesting to see how the room initially said that they knew quite a lot about synthetics, decentralized tokenization, and so on. But then actually, when the talk happened, I could see that I think a lot of people thought they knew how like a D Tesla would work. But then when you actually went to the nitty-gritty, you could really see how for many of them, yeah, they thought they knew, but then once it really got explained, they realized, okay, wow, there's like so many additional like facets to everything. So that was quite interesting. I didn't have much time to network with many other speakers and many other people, which is a bit of like, I really regret, but I had so much work at the same time, and I was on Singapore time zone. So my schedule like was completely messed up with everything. I was super tired at like at like 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. because it was basically became 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning. But I since like it's really crucial time right now with everything that's going on, I didn't want to leave out any meetings or like leave out any stand-up. So yeah, I quite interesting for those maybe that are not that familiar with South by Southwest. It's one of the largest startup conferences in the world even. It goes for 10 days. It's in Austin, Texas. I talked to the organizer. They said that it was about 15% from 2019 numbers. So actually quite a lot despite the pandemic. So yeah, that was quite a pleasant surprise. Obviously very interesting. I mean, I live in Singapore. Singapore still has a mask mandate everywhere. In Austin, Texas, also in Florida, there's pretty much no masks except for in public transport, on the plane and at the airport. So that was also quite interesting. Obviously, going into a hotel for the first time in like what 2 years, and not or being inside, being indoors and not wearing a mask. So that was quite a new experience. It felt. And other than that, I think there were around 200 people at my talk. Questions were really from very basic like very basic understanding of decentralized tokenization all the way to talking about the economics. This could be seen as a call option and blah blah. So it was very, very interesting. Obviously, there was question on regulation. We discussed various ideas there on how to improve that and what could be going forward. So yeah, I think there was really good marketing also for Cake DeFi without being too salesy or too aggressive. So it really stayed super educational. So I think that's yeah, maybe a super nice one. Conference wise, I really there was a lot of questions and afterwards where I got DMs if I'm going to this conference or that conference. So at the moment, the goal is really not for me or for anyone to actively go to conferences. It really has to kind of fit with a larger kind of purpose. So in this case, there was a very clear business meeting that was yesterday that I wanted to do. And I would have flown just for that meeting to that business meeting, so just a single meeting. So yeah, since South by Southwest was basically just prior to that, it was a perfect fit. So and the reason is just very simple. Sometimes these conferences are not so productive for me because I really have to kind of get out, network with people, and then I leave out a lot of the other things where like actual operational stuff in the company kind of falls short. So yeah, sometimes it makes more sense that someone else goes and actually specifically goes in the company to like network, business to business, PR work, and so on. So yeah, it's so future conference is really going to be. So I got a lot of questions if I'm going to be at the Bitcoin conference in Miami in 3 weeks. So as it looks right now, it's very unlikely I'll come. But yeah, let's see. It's definitely for sure probably a great conference. But it's just yeah, for me just to go there 3 days and just network and have fun with people, like that's expensive 3 days for me, especially with the goals that we have for the company. So yeah, I hope you understand that. It's a bit different, obviously, if there's like a event in Singapore and all I need to do is hop into the car, drive to the conference, give a talk, and that's it. But then there's another thing, which is like 12-hour time difference, travel pretty much around the world. So yeah, it's always a bit of a ratio to that. Are there any other questions, Fabio, that you see around the company or something very specific? Because otherwise, I would shift over to what's happening in the general markets. But are there any questions that you see?
Yeah, one very specific question, and this is: is it possible for people, for customers, for listeners to follow the talk that you gave in Texas, a recording or a
We're
video?
still trying to figure this out ourselves. I know that there was a live stream of it. We figured this out after the live stream was over. Otherwise, I would have shared that. We didn't know that there was a live stream. But this was afterwards. So we're trying to see if there is a recording or something. We also only figured this out afterwards.
But maybe for everybody listening and for those who asked the questions, if we are able to figure out and get our hands on the recording, of course, we will share it either on Julian's personal channel or on Cake's channel, or maybe both.
Yeah, I mean, of course, if we have something, then we're definitely going to share it. So yeah, don't worry. At the moment, I really don't. But also, so the feedback was that this talk I gave there also internally, right? So I always get a good feeling when I know that a talk can be, it's not just a one-off, but this can be a very important building block for the future. So that talk is going to be part of a building block that I probably will give more often because it's basically a building block of Web3. And so it can be, it's definitely not going to be a talk that I'll only give at South by. So it will be a talk that I'll definitely give more often. I'll be speaking at TEDx Singapore on, when is that, Saturday? Yeah, Saturday. I'll be speaking at, and that's kind of a shortened version of that South by talk. And it's going to be very specific to other topics. But so it's going to be a larger kind of building block. So if we don't get a recording from that, then you will definitely get a version that includes all the talking points that I give there. It was the first time I gave that presentation at South by, but the way we structured the presentation now is a really good kind of intro and building block, and I think it's very educational at the same time, while it's educational but also inspirational. And I think that's always what you want. So you want to learn, but you also want to like really kind of be inspired to take some action from that, and I think that's always key. So yeah, cool. Great. Let's go into the other topics. Maybe a short point up front. The Bitcoin ban in the EU got rejected yesterday. That was quite surprising. I found I was already mentally prepared about there being like some PR nightmare following. I don't know. How did you experience that on social, Fabio? And maybe do you want to give a quick summary for everyone who has no clue what I'm talking about?
Yes, of course. I was following it very closely because I'm affected by it. Not really that I'm a miner or something, but I live in the European Union. I live in the Netherlands, and they had this vote on banning proof of work. And actually, a large majority of people, at least in my circle and on social media, were expecting the European Union to ban proof of work because they're really worried about the environmental impact, and they are very careful and with all their environmental policies. So the vote ended in 35 yay and 24 nays. Which was, in my mind, a little bit surprising. And also, like, I was following the whole session, and I don't remember his name, but this one guy, he said, yeah, we really need to look forward that Europe stays at the central of innovation and technology, which made me laugh because there is not a single innovative or technology company based in Europe. Like most of the countries here in Europe haven't had economic growth in the last 20 years. And since Nokia, there was not like a bigger company, but at least they try. And I think it's a very good development that we are not banning proof of work and that they try maybe to turn the ship around a little bit, because on the technology and innovation front, Europe was suffering a little bit during the last 20 years. And I think they noticed that. So they try to do the right thing with crypto, or at least that's my hope, and a little bit the words of one of the speakers that was speaking. So I'm very happy, of course, with the results.
Yeah, of course. I think we all are. And I mean, for everyone, and there was a lot of messages where people were like, oh, this would have been so good for like the proof of stake coins if Bitcoin would have gotten hit there, and then like a lot of money would flow to proof of stake. And I just want to remind that this is like this typical tribalism thinking where you are one finger on the hand and you believe if you cut off the hand that you're kind of hurting someone else, and you're forgetting that you're sitting on the same hand. This is kind of the feeling. And again, that is kind of the sentiment what over the past, I think, especially 2 years, has put me a bit away from like some of those coins that are so tribalist, because that's not how I was kind of getting into this ecosystem. To me, it was being open and being having the best ideas win and not trying to shoot other ideas down. I strongly dislike that. And so someone that thinks that your coin wins by Bitcoin losing, it's just the absolute most short-sighted idea I've ever heard. Bitcoin at the moment is still by far the mother of all coins. If Bitcoin loses, the entire crypto space loses. It's just going to be super hurtful. So you wishing that Bitcoin loses is, yeah, it's at the end shooting your own foot, like shooting yourself, right? So don't, like, it doesn't matter how many Bitcoins you own, if it's 0 or you're a Bitcoin maxi. You need to understand, like, Bitcoin is by far the most dominant kind of brand and driver for the entire ecosystem. And Ethereum may be coming second, but there's like a big difference still. Even though maybe in market cap it's just, I don't know, 2x difference. But in actual brand, actual reputation, in actual industry connection, there's a humongous difference still. So just keep that a bit in mind. So don't be careful what you wish for sometimes. And yeah, so I'm super glad that this ban was avoided. But again, it's probably, in my opinion, just a temporary thing because they're going to be coming back it's going to be and that's just my gut feeling, it's going to be an ongoing scenario in Europe. I wouldn't be surprised if, despite the executive order in the US, there's going to be efforts in the US being made to kind of somehow suppress crypto. Yeah, so I think that's definitely going to be an ongoing kind of effort. Yeah, what are the main topics that are being discussed in the community other than the Fed meeting tomorrow? I mean, one funny thing was this Elon Musk, Michael Saylor kind of conversation where Michael Saylor posted under Elon's tweet, you need to buy Bitcoin because Bitcoin's going up. And then Elon tweeted back and said, oh, this answer was so expected or so foreseeable. And then Elon kind of goes into this explanation that it still makes so much more sense to buy physical assets, but then he still owns Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Doge and hasn't sold a single one. Obviously, afterwards, if you looked at the Doge chart, Doge pumped after that, of course. Yeah, and then I made a tweet and said, at the end, this all comes down to basically what you value most. Do you value more scarcity or do you value utility? And I sometimes feel like, this is just a bit of a feeling, a lot of the Bitcoiners, they're really arguing on scarcity, on this verifiable scarcity, where many people in the physical world, they are arguing way more on, yeah, sure, you're right. Maybe we don't know how much, whatever, oil, gold, metal, whatever is in the world. Like, we cannot verify that, and we have to trust others. But the utility is way stronger in the real world, right? And so it's kind of a bit of a back and forth there. How did you experience that, Fabio? I don't know how much you followed that.
Yeah, of course, I followed the conversation. I have my notifications on for Elon because it's just he's just crazy. Yesterday I think he challenged Putin to a one-on-one fight, and
That was so funny.
The winner takes the Ukraine. So these are my daily highlights. And in the comment section, he even said that he's serious about it, and he tagged Putin. So he's like such an edgelord. Like he really knows how to trigger people and to make bold statements and to get people's attention. I love it. The discussion he had with Saylor. Yeah, it was not really a discussion, just a short back and forth. But yeah, of course, Saylor is going to jump into the comment section when Elon makes a tweet, and he's going to talk about Elon, about Bitcoin. And Elon pointed that out, that it's very obvious that Saylor is going to bring up Bitcoin because, yeah, he's so, like, with his personal wealth and also with his company, he's so overexposed. In the beginning, you were asking what other things are coming up. Yeah, of course, we have the Fed meeting. I'm always confused with the US time. So it's the 15th, but US time. So in Europe, it's the 15th right now, but I guess it's in the evening. So it means the 16th in Europe time then?
Yeah, so I think, so I think, as far as I understand it, again, and I'm definitely not the expert there, but as far as I understand it, the meeting is today, 15th, and the announcement's happening tomorrow on the 16th. So that was always how I understood it, but maybe, again, I am wrong. Please, I'm sure on Twitter there are enough people who can correct us and just tweet the correct fact here. But this is how I understood it so far, that the meeting is today, and then tomorrow is going to be the announcement.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. For the rest, of course, there's lots of attention focused on this one meeting, and both, I guess, general markets and the crypto space or risk-on assets are dependent on the announcement. I guess also gold or bonds could react.
I think everything is going to react heavily to that announcement.
Yeah.
I think really, really heavily. And I mean, I think we should discuss the various options, right? And maybe use the last 10 minutes here to really kind of discuss the various outcomes, possible implications. I think that's definitely an interesting one.
May I start with a conspiracy theory before
Please.
we
course,
go into a more educational and a more
nothing better than a good conspiracy theory.
Okay. So, like, I had a few talks with a few friends, and there was this one discussion because I think I know there is one side and it gives probabilities to the outcome of this Fed meeting. And I think right now there is a 98% probability that they will hike rates between 0.25 and 0.5%. And this is what probably everybody expects. If this is priced in or not, I don't know. But if this whole commodity crisis that we have right now, the prices are spiraling out of control, gas prices, fuel prices, wheat, nickel, you name it, and all the turmoil that is happening with the war, and so there is a small chance that the Fed is going to backpedal, completely change their course, and going to say we're not going to hike interest rates, or we potentially even going to lower it. While this has a super low chance of actually playing out, this would mean if they would lower it, we would probably go into a short, maybe even prolonged bull market period with all risk on assets. But as I said, the chances are, I think 98%, or at least the website that I visited gave it a 98% chance that there will be a small rate hike. My bets are on 0.25, but of course, I would love for them to not do anything or to even lower the rates so we can pump. What do you think is going to happen?
Okay, so let's discuss. And I mean, I don't think it's so much of a conspiracy theory. It's just one of the possible outcomes, right? So, okay, so tomorrow, what are they going to announce? So they need to announce that either they're going to leave interest rates at zero, or they're going to lower. Yeah, which in my opinion is super unlikely, but let's say possible. Or they're going to raise. One raise is 0.25%, or they're going to do a second raise to 0.5%. I think without the Ukraine conflict, they would very, very, very likely raise to 0.5%. That was the original kind of idea about a month ago. And that was kind of flowing into the expectation. I think now with the Ukraine conflict, things obviously have changed. The possibility of an actual recession is going up, and there the Fed just really has to be careful in not raising rates into a recession, which can be very detrimental. So from the various outcomes, right? So of course, the lower interest rates. So always understand this. I think people struggle a bit with this concept. If you have low interest rates, that means money's cheap. It's easier to borrow money, and having money right now becomes less valuable because you just don't need it as much. The higher interest rates, the more valuable it becomes to have money right now, because first of all, you get an interest on it, and borrowing money is getting more expensive. So companies that generate cash flow, basically bringing you money right now, become worth more. Assets that don't generate cash flow, or that promise to generate cash flow in the future, so mostly growth companies, become less valuable when interests go up, interest rates. So gold generally, commodities also in theory, and growth companies generally, when interest rates go up, they don't do so well. Bitcoin, we don't really have as much experience, and I'm sometimes not 100% sure how much Bitcoin is actually reacting to the actual fundamentals here and more to the emotions, because Bitcoin is just way more emotional than most of the other investments. So if the interest rates stay low or even go lower, this should have a very positive price, as you said, for mostly risk on assets, especially growth companies. And for, in theory, also for Bitcoin. The big thing then is, what does this do to inflation? Because suddenly this means money's still cheap, and we have like sky high inflation, close to 8%. So this is like 40-year highs. So it's absolutely bonkers. The most likely scenario at the moment, I think, is a single hike, so 0.25%. I think if we see that, even though a lot of people say, oh, this is expected, there's still this secret hope that rates do not go up. I would then expect the market to slightly go down, or do nothing, but rather slightly go down. If we do raise to 0.5%, which I actually think is still a strong probability, and I'll talk about why, and I mentioned this a couple of times, then I really think the market is really not expecting it, and I think the market would really, I don't want to say tank, but I think it would really go down. There is a secondary effect, though, and the secondary effect is, and now let's discuss this through. If you look at the large players, not the small players who maybe don't think this through, and they're more like, okay, I just want to see prices pump right now. I just care about the next months, right? I don't care about the long term. I just care about the next month. If the Fed goes and says, we're looking at the fundamentals of the economy, right? So we're not looking at Bitcoin, we're not looking at growth companies, we're not looking what like those non-cash flowing companies that are trading at like they're losing money, but they're like trading at billions of dollars. We're looking at the fundamentals. So we're looking at how liquid are bond markets, how liquid basically, how easy can the government, how easy can companies borrow money, right? How much do, like you look at repo markets, this is basically how much do companies, how much do banks, how much do governments trust each other, right? These are the fundamentals of a company, of the economy. Sure, I understand that for many of us that are heavily invested in tech and crypto, it sucks if crypto prices go down or if tech prices go down. But to be honest, it's quite irrelevant to the actual economy, right? What's really, really, really an issue is if suddenly banks, governments, these large institutions that do trillions of dollars, if they don't trust each other anymore, because then you have a complete shutdown and then you actually have consequences that you cannot foresee, because then it really may actually happen that suddenly people like that nothing works anymore. Payments don't work anymore. Credit cards don't work anymore. Sure, you can say, oh, that's what you need Bitcoin for. Fair enough. I'm not disagreeing with this, but let's be real here. 99% of all transactions are not Bitcoin. They are still the traditional rails. So suddenly this would totally break down. So that's what the Fed needs to look at. And they're going to look at how healthy are these markets. And I mentioned this a couple of times. There's not a single like sign that these markets have some issue. And if you compare this with 2008, when like the financial system really collapsed, there you suddenly saw spreads going up, right? And the spreads means if you have to pay like a significant, like even a fraction of a percent for a euro dollar swap for as a large institution, this is completely bankrupting you, because suddenly if you pay, let's say 0.1% on that swap or even 0.01, like you're bankrupting basically your entire like thing, because the conversions that you have to do between euro and dollars, these are trillions of dollars on a daily basis, right? You look at large banks have to settle trillions of dollars a day. So if they need to pay like a significant amount of basis points on that, it's completely bankrupting them. So instantly. And of course you can sit here now and cheer for that and say, oh yeah, that's good, like these banks need to die. I mean, over the long term, like they need to improve their business model. I'm agreeing. But if you do this right now, you're completely putting billions of people out of, like you're gonna have civil war for billions of people instantly. So that's what the Fed looks at. And so if the Fed goes and actually lowers rates or keeps them at where they are, I think this is one of the scariest statements like they could send to the market, because this means that they have zero faith in the system, zero. And I would actually think if they would leave rates where they are, or if they actually go lower, there's a very, very, very high chance the markets would rally short term. And then the large players would like come in and be like, holy shit, what are we not seeing that the Fed is seeing? Because from everything that we look at from a fundamental perspective, sure, tech is selling off. S&P is going into a bear market. The crypto's in a bear market, sure. All of these things. But let's be real here. Let's zoom out, right? If in doubt, zoom out. I mean, Bitcoin is close to 40,000. Bitcoin 2 years ago was at, before the COVID crash, was at around 8,000. So we're up 5x. You can look at the Nasdaq, you can look at stocks, everything is up massively over the past 5 years, right? And I understand that most people are like more like goldfish. They think in daily like steps, not in yearly steps. If you look at over years, prices up massively. So if these large players come in and they're like, holy shit, the Fed is lowering rates, what are we not seeing? And then they get scared, because don't forget, professional investors, they are like at the poker table. So they sit there and they say, if I don't know who's the idiot at the table, it's probably me. Retail investors are more like, oh, great, I get to join a poker table. Oh, fantastic. Like prices are going up. Oh, that's awesome. They don't think this further through. So I would be very careful, really careful, if you actually see the Fed not raising rates. Even though the prices on the short term may actually go up, I would see this as a super, super, super scary scenario. I'm not kidding here. Because that means, what are we not considering?
Well,
yeah, sorry, Fabio.
No, this is actually great stuff you're sharing with us. Funny thing is, I had a discussion yesterday, and the issue, like the Fed has they can either choose between pest and cholera. It's because if they don't raise interest rates, inflation is just spiraling out of control. And if they raise interest rates to the amount we actually would need, so to control inflation, they would need to have several rate hikes. Probably 4 small ones this year is not nearly enough to control inflation. They would probably need real rate hikes, or maybe continue even into 2023 and increase rates a lot. And if they would actually do that, we will go into a recession, even maybe possibly a depression. And so a friend of mine, he asked me yesterday, and he said, okay, what would you do if you would be Jerome Powell, if you would be at the Fed, and if you could decide? I would resign instantly. Like, I cannot understand why Jerome Powell wants to keep his job. He's filthy rich. He has a great track record. He did exceptionally well. I would do the same thing as Mario Draghi in the European Union. Just resign and leave somebody else with all the mess. I don't know what he's still doing at the Fed. Do you think he can turn the ship around? I'm so curious what is going on in his mind, what he thinks yeah.
Of course he thinks. Of course he thinks that. And I mean, I think he has a decent chance. I'm not saying it's like a guarantee, but like, okay, so what would I do, right? So I would go and I would raise 0.25%. Yes, I know that the market doesn't want to see this right now, but I'm going to set the right, like, I'm going to make the right statement for me. Like, I'm going to go and say, look, I'm confident in the economy. Yes, I know that some of you are bleeding right now with your investments. See this long term. You need to have some patience here. Don't see this on a day-by-day basis. We need to like catch this a bit. We need to slow it, like we need to slow down inflation. Like, markets are healthy. We need to slow this down. I wouldn't go in with 0.5%. I think 0.5% is really like whoop. That's like a jab that no one sees coming. So I think that's maybe a bit on the too aggressive side, but I would just go with the 2.5. I would know that I would cause some short-term pain, and then you need to keep going. That's the only way. We've been living on borrowed time, borrowed money over the last 2 years. And we can argue whether this was okay or not. I think the first year of printing money was okay. The second year, that's kind of why we're bleeding so much right now. But everyone was kind of on the needle, and no one wanted to get off the needle anymore. And now we pay the consequences. And so now it's time probably to just go 0.25, 0.25, 0.25. If the Ukraine conflict kind of eases up, gets resolved, go to 0.5, and just go all the way aggressive. I would probably, like, I'm going to get some push from the Democrats, let's say by the end of the summer. So September, I'm going to need to step away and be like, oh, looks, everything is well. Bam, I'm going to step away with the rate hikes. Market's going to rally in September. Yes, it's going to be a shit first half, maybe shit 3 first quarters of the year. So what? Like, we're not goldfish that only have 9 months to live. Like, we have decades. So I think of this in the long term. And I mean, I get where you're coming from, but then also see it the other way around. If Powell manages to kind of maneuver this entire mess, he goes down as one of the best Fed chairs ever, who kind of managed this really precarious situation. And I don't know. I think that's what some people just want to do. I hope so, at least. I hope he doesn't do this for other reasons. I hope he does this because he believes he can do it, and I hope he does this to prove to the people that he can do it. I hope so, because otherwise, I mean, we're going to get the biggest shit show ever. And I need to believe this, because if I don't believe this, that I really believe this is going to be the biggest shit show ever, then, I mean, I would prepare for war. Like, I would not even care about Bitcoin or something. I would just, I would buy something, I don't know, in the middle of New Zealand, and I would set up a fully automated weapons system to prepare myself against everyone else. That's what I would be doing if I don't believe that. To me, it's cynical, or it's hypocritical, saying that all of this is going to go down, but then people still live in like the normal world. They live in the Western world. They don't go into the jungle in South America where they can completely be self-sufficient. Because let's be real here, if we're going to see this massive crisis because the US doesn't have their shit together, I mean, like, what are people expecting? Like, we're going to see a massive civil war. not only in the US, but it's going to spread into Europe. And then the civil war is going to turn into wars with external parties. I mean, we discussed this so many times. Read Principles for a Changing World Order from Ray Dalio. Like, I know that people read this book and they're like, oh yeah, this makes so much sense, makes so much sense. But then they don't think it's true what it actually means. It means go to New Zealand, go to Australia, live in the middle of nowhere, prepare an automated weapon system, protect yourself and your family against everything and everyone else. And that's it. Like, that's what you need to do for the next 5 years. If you don't believe that the US is going to get their shit together, that's at least my opinion. So fingers crossed. I mean, maybe I'm completely wrong. So maybe I'm still, maybe I'm cynical. Maybe I believe the system is still good enough. Yeah. I don't know what your thoughts on that is.
Yeah, I'm an optimist. I always think otherwise there is no point in participating in the markets. If you're, of course, you can short sell everything and you can think everything is going to collapse, but in the end, somebody needs to settle your short trade and pay it out, and you need infrastructure and rails to actually get your money. So you need to be an optimist to participate in the market. And I think the comparison you made, the point you made that you need. Sorry, it's the thing just went away. But give me 10 seconds. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah. So so with the outcomes, right? Prepare yourself mentally, and I just want to like the messages I always get back when I make these statements, right? So prepare yourself mentally that tomorrow we're going to see an announcement of that there's going to be a slight rate hike. I would expect 0.25. I would not expect 0.5%. That would be, like, to me, a bit of an aggressive one. I don't know how this kind of works out. I think short term, if there's a rate hike, that you're going to see prices go down slightly, but expect also that at the end, it's not fundamentally a problem for the ecosystem. So this is not an issue. So expect actually that afterwards, people are like, okay, good. Like, it's promising. Like, inflation should be going down. The Fed is confident in the system. What's 0.25 doesn't really matter. Sure, let's go. And then I actually think we're going to see the total inverse of what people are expecting, which is that the prices keep going down. I actually think we can see the prices then over time turn around. So now the questions I'm getting constantly when I make these statements, so are you selling? Are you buying? Are you doing this? I have shared this over the last months with an S at the end. I haven't repositioned my portfolio at all. My portfolio right now is extremely diversified. I am in cash, I'm in crypto, I am in stocks, I'm in bonds, I'm in commodities, I'm in precious metals. There's not a single asset class other than real estate, and that's more of a personal issue that I don't want to own real estate. It doesn't say anything about the investment. It's more like a personal effort that I want to make with real estate or I don't want to make. But there's not a single asset class right now that I don't have a very solid exposure to. So if the other asset classes die, but one survives, great. If 6 die and 7, or if 6 go up and 1 goes down, doesn't matter. So I would highly recommend that, that at the moment your bets are, like, make your bets at the moment with not with the question how to be right, but make the bets with the question how not to be wrong. It's such a different approach. So if you ask yourself, should I buy Bitcoin? Should I buy gold? Should I buy oil? Should I buy silver? Should I buy gold? Don't ask that question based on, are you going to be right? Ask the question on, how does this not make you wrong? That's key. I really think it's key. And yeah, in so many situations, right? It's not the one who's winning that's kind of, or who's the best who's winning. It's many times the last man standing or the last woman standing is the one who's winning. And I really think right now we're in an ecosystem where it's really about just don't go bust. Like, just survive. Did you remember what you wanted to say?
Yeah, I remember. I think the point that you made that leaving the rates at the same as they are right now, or even lowering it, would probably signal that the system is beyond repair, at least for the people that think 2 steps ahead. And in the short term, it would result in a pump, of course, but in the long term, this is a very bad signal for the general market that we are beyond repair and there is no hope left. So I think this is an exceptional point that you made. And on the second part, the 5 years, and that there are difficult times ahead. I actually read a good Reddit thread on Wall Street Bets a few days ago, how the financial world ends is the title, and it kind of went a little bit viral. It's a super messed up thread. It's like a 20-minute read, but it's kind of insightful. And he makes one point that I find super interesting, and he compares the time that we are going into, I think, a little bit to the 30s and a little bit to the 70s. And he says, you know, the initial stage of inflation, you can see it in commodity prices first, and we are already seeing that. But in the end, this will result in food prices going up. And like what it means when gas prices, oil prices, and food prices are going up is that everybody that is living paycheck to paycheck, and these are in America, these are 60% of the people don't have savings and they live paycheck to paycheck. And they are like, on the water is until their neck. They don't have a lot of room to breathe. And if oil costs, gas costs, and food costs go up, they will suffer and they will not be able to put food on the table or to keep their car running or their house warm. And if these things happen, there will be civil unrest. If with civil unrest possible within the next 6 months, 18 months, or whatever time frame, there is a little bit of your point is definitely valid, that there could be a very challenging time ahead of us.
And I mean, I know we're shooting over super far. Just one reminder I want to throw in there, because I feel people just regurgitate a lot of things that they read, but then they don't think the stuff through. So let's imagine inflation now goes from 8% right now to a normal 2%, right? So let's say the Fed manages to do this. What does this mean for food and gas prices? What it means is, and this is the key part, understand that. It means not that they go down. For prices to go down, we need to have deflation. This just means that prices don't go up at that speed. So we don't see a 10-cent fuel price increase every single day when you go to the pump. It means, okay, now we're staying there. So I don't know where you're living, but if you're living, let's say in Europe, and suddenly prices went over €2 a liter, right? Getting close to what, $10 in the US per gallon, that we don't go at that same rate. It does not mean that prices are going down. Understand that part. It's so important. When I talk to people about inflation, I'm like, inflation goes from 8% down to 4%. And they're like, oh yeah, that would be so good because prices, like fuel prices, really went up too much. I'm like, you understand that that doesn't mean that fuel prices go down. It just means they stop rising at that speed that they have been rising. And so if you look now at the number one goal the US or the Fed has to do, and the whole world has to do, it has to stop that rate of increase of like prices going up. Because if the point that Fabio made is exactly that, for a majority of people, if their expenses go up by $50 or $60, $70 a month, that means they don't have that kind of money. That means they cannot put food on the table. That means they can't drive the car. Now, guess what? Fathers and mothers and people all around the world are going to do if they cannot feed their children, if they cannot bring their children, if they cannot keep their children safe. Nothing else matters anymore. And that is where, like, if nothing else matters, people become completely unpredictable. And that is what you have to like be really, really careful for. So when you sit there and you're in your like palace and all you care about is Bitcoin going up or DeFi chain going up or Ethereum going up, and that's why you want like rates going down, understand what you're really doing here, right? And I just want to highlight that. So I understand that we all in this mess because over the last 2 years, decision-making led us into printing shitloads of money, and people got addicted to that shitloads of money. And now we're sitting here. Most people didn't benefit from the massive price increases. Everyone in crypto did. Even though you didn't sell 3 months ago, even if you're just holding right now, compare your prices from right now, from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So understand what's at stake here. And I think that is just what the really, really, really important number one goal here is. It's not to protect your Bitcoin wealth. It's not to protect like whatever crazy tech stock you're in. What's really at stake here is making sure that families all around the world who were, just like Fabio said, like really neck deep in water, can actually stay neck deep in water and not get put down. Because if they get put down, this is the beginning of the end. So understand, because if you're a father, if you're a mom, you can completely relate there. If your kid has something, if you don't have enough food for your kid to put on the table, you're going to do whatever is necessary. You know that. And that is where the world's going to go haywire really, 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 really fast. So let's see. Yeah, I want to close with that. Sorry, it went a bit longer today. To me, very important day tomorrow. Let's see what the Fed decides. Again, I'm optimistic, just like Fabio. I think I'm an optimist. I think they're gonna get their stuff together. I know out there, just like, I don't know, spiritual, ritual, religious leaders always predict doomsday coming next year, whatever. Financial crash analysts can always predict the next crash. And I know that many people in the Bitcoin ecosystem, they predict like the complete revolution of the system tomorrow. Most of the time, over the last, whatever, couple hundred years, they have always been wrong. Sure, I get it. There's always this one time when a blind chicken finds a corn. But I'm actually quite optimistic that the world somehow figures it out and the world keeps spinning. And I think we need to be optimistic on that as well. So yeah, with that, I want to finish on that high note. I hope that kind of shares a bit of your thoughts, maybe also sharpens a bit your thinking, your long-term focus on this, not so much on the day-by-day basis. And yeah, I wish you a really good day. Fingers crossed for tomorrow. Let's see what happens. And obviously, if you're not a customer on the platform, please do so. If you are interested in working for the company, we also give out ESOP, so you can become a shareholder. That also means you can own part of the venture fund. Obviously, if you are a company or thinking about starting a company, reach out for fundraising. With that, Fabio, thanks so much for your time. Sorry for shooting a bit over. I hope it was worth your time, and all the best in the meantime. Stay safe, stay healthy. Talk next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. Just as a finishing note, we're doing this weekly every Tuesday, and this is 11:30 European time and 6:30 Singapore time. You can find this also on Spotify, on Apple, and on YouTube a bit later today. Thanks everybody, and until next time.